So welcome to part 5 of creating pagan bylaws. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. And people might think, gosh, there's a lot of sections to this. Well, your pagan bylaws should be pretty detailed. And the reason is that, like I said, this is the professional face of your pagan organization. People are going to look in your bylaws for all sorts of types of information about your group, depending on what their interest is. So the next section that we're going to talk about is going to be fundraising and organization. So what I mean by organization here is not your member organization, but how you organize as a group. So, the events that you do or the, what it is your group comes together to do. So if you're a charitable group, when do you do your food drives, and what are the things you should expect from the food drives, so forth and so on. So the reason that we have this section here is so that people can see what type of organization you are and how you conduct yourselves. So where the codes of conduct was conduct within the group and with each other, this would be conduct as a business, so your business conduct. So the next section is fees and fundraising. And this is really important because it's one thing more that people are going to want to know what to expect when they come to an event that you have. Some pagan groups are going to want to charge fees and entrance fees and maybe even membership dues and things like that to be part of the organization. And while that is, something that's a personal choice, and depending on what your finances are and maybe how much it is to cost for you to rent a space and so forth and so on, I always encourage that pagan organizations that are there for community, and not necessarily for the social ones, because that's a little bit different, but for pagan organizations that they are there to serve the community, you should really try to keep the fees at a minimum so that you can be inclusive to as many people as possible. The way that I look at it is, if you want to fill the role of a priest or priestess, then don't act like a promoter. Because promoters, who run social organizations, they're going to charge a fee at the door, right? But how many times have you walked into a church or other religious organization where they required a fee at the door? Granted, there are some Christian churches that require tithing, but they're few and far between. And let's face it, they're not exactly the ones that people are raring to, that a lot of people choose to patronize because they require that fee. So the way that I look at it is try to make things as low cost as possible for people, but it's ultimately up to you, depending on how it is that you think you can, stay afloat and still serve the community. For our temple personally, we don't have member dues, and most of our events are free. There are some events that we would like to do in the future, where we might charge a fee, especially if it's like a class or a fundraiser. Those things we might charge for. But when it comes to actual religious events where it's, us, doing our primary goal, which is to bring people closer to the gods, we want to be inclusive and we want to make sure that people come. So we're not going to charge a fee for people to come. We also do a lot of spiritual services for free too, or at, basically at cost. However much it costs us, we just pass that cost on to whoever is doing it. But like I said, that's ultimately up to you. But the way that we have it in our bylaws is that we put that the Temple of the Greek Gods is an organization focused on inclusion and people regardless of income. Therefore, no membership fees shall ever be charged at any level. Members are still responsible for paying fees for any classes they may take or fundraisers they may attend unless prior arrangements have been made. That way, people know what to expect when it comes to the money situation. And if you have other events that you're going to charge for and you know how much you're going to charge for, you can include that in the fees and fundraising section. If you have specific fundraising events that you want to talk about and how much that costs, you can put it in the section. If you have a dues or, a monthly stipend that you have to pay, there's certain organizations that do. I know NIPA, Northern Illinois Pagan Association, if you want to be a voting member, I think it's $30 a year, which is a bargain, right? They try to keep it as low as possible, but they do have operating costs. So it's okay to charge for your operating costs, But, you know, if you're a group that's looking to serve the community in a religious capacity or a charitable capacity, I don't recommend charging a whole bunch of fees. Now, some groups, and our group is included in this, have a clause to help people so that if there's an event where there's a charge and they can't afford to go, we want to try to make those events as inclusive as possible. But we also want something in return for that. Because if we're going to be doing and giving all this energy to them, we think they should be able to give energy to us. And whether that's in the form of funds or doing something else, you know, then, you know, we want to make it, you know, basically a fair agreement. So the way that we have our bylaws set up is I've got an event section under the fees and fundraising as well, where I articulate that if people can't afford to pay for an event fee, they can contact us ahead of time, and we'll arrange for them to do some volunteering so that they don't have to pay for their event fee. So for us, it's 2 hours of an event. If you volunteer for 2 hours, and you can come for free. So whether that be part of the welcoming committee, or if you just help clean up afterwards, or you help set up beforehand, whatever that is, if you put in that 2 hours, we're going to let you come for free. You know, that way we get the volunteers that we need, and we get people who become more invested in our group because they've been volunteering, and at the same time, they're able to enjoy things without, you know, going into poverty because of it. Because we try to do things for people as low cost as possible, that means that we often do have to do some fundraising. And so we put some rules for fundraising within our bylaws. Essentially, what we've said is that people who are elder priests or high priests are allowed to fundraise and seek donations for the Temple of the Greek Gods at their own events. And that they can ask for donations for events they do in collaboration with the Temple of the Greek Gods. And also, that any fundraising events where services or goods are sold for donations must comply with state and local ordinances. I just put that in there because, you know, it just needs to be said. I'll give you an example. Certain places, if you want to do a bake sale, they require you to have a sanitation license. So you wouldn't be able to do a bake sale as part of the Temple of Greek Gods unless you made sure that you had that sanitation license. Elders and high priests may charge for services they perform as members of the Temple of the Greek Gods, or elder or priests of the Temple of the Greek Gods. And then I also have a section for vendors, and that's the last section essentially under fundraising. For vendors, if there's outside vendors who come in, they may be charged a rental fee for their vendor space. And this is talking about basically fundraising events. They must bring their own tables or sales supplies, and that Temple of the Greek Gods is not responsible for lost or stolen money or merchandise. So that way, vendors who are in collaboration with us, they also know what to expect when they come and do something at an event. Lastly, in this video, I wanted to talk about events. This is kind of a shorter section. We just discussed the type of events that we have as our group. So this, again, goes back to your original premise, your goal. What are the type of events you're going to have, and why are you going to have them? For the Temple of the Greek Gods, we organized it into 3 different types of events. We have private events that are inner circle, elder priesthood, and high priesthood only. We have public events, which are open to the public, and those are the ones where the outer court circle can come. And those, of course, can also include secondary goal ideas like community, charitable events, social events, and some of them are also religious centered. And then, of course, the fundraiser events are open to everybody because, you know, we want your money. And then, of course, there's member-only business events, and those would be the meetings where votes take place. Those are members only, voting members only, and that's where we discuss business, how we are going to apply any funds that we've gotten from fundraisers, you know, the things the things that committees are working on, and so forth and so on. So those are the 3 types of events that we have. You don't have to get into great detail because you might be adding and subtracting events all year round. Just today, my husband and I discussed that we're going to start adding a new event to our calendar on September 21st for the Greek goddess Irene. She is a goddess of peace, and of course that is an International Peace Day as set by the UN. So we wanted to honor her on that day. So to try to bring peace into the world, because we're cool like that. Anyway, this concludes this video. The next video and the last video in the series is going to be about committees. And this we'll discuss all the types of subgroups that are in your organization. We call them committees. You can call them anything that you like.